Three, two, one. What's going on, guys? My name is Paolo. My host is Kieran as well, and we are back for episode 5 of On the Volley. Now, it's 5, right?
Yes, it is 5.
It's 5. All right. Now, we've got a very exciting slate of things to come. We've got a couple quick things thrown over first, but Kieran is very excited to announce our Roundup in-depth tactical analysis of the FA Cup, along with a few other things.
Yes, so on today's show, we'll be taking a look at all the FA Cup scores, the big shocks, and the five. Well, we've picked out 5 key games that we think are particularly interesting from the weekend. I'm sure you can guess some of them. And as well as that, we'll be taking a look at the confirmed transfers from this week. There's 4 or 5 sort of big-ish ones. One in particular, which I'm sure you all know all about, as well as our team of the week, which features, for the first time ever, I think it's five players from the Football League, because some players in the FA Cup this week were just incredible. We've also got our EFL team of the week player, who is coming from the EFL rather than the FA Cup. Just as with last week, we are doing this live. So if there are any technical issues as there were last week, or if there's any, random background noises from when we fall out of our seats that we can't edit out because we're doing it live, then apologies for that. But this is just it's the most natural way to do things, I think.
Yeah, and it's the way to be. And as we get into this episode, it's time for a quick roundup of the other top 5 leagues. Obviously, the Premier League has had a break because of the FA Cup, but other leagues have been in play this weekend, so let's jump straight into it. In La Liga, Barcelona are dominant as always, 9 points clear. Obviously, they just signed Felipe Coutinho. They also just got Dembele back from injury, which is basically like another signing. So you're basically bringing in 2 very high-class wingers/midfielders to a team that's already 9 points clear of Atletico Madrid. Real Madrid dropped points in a late one let me double check, against Celta de Vigo. So they are now 16 points back of Barcelona in 4th place. They are also 17 points off the relegation zone. So just for some perspective, Barcelona are absolutely dominant this season after people said they wouldn't be, despite losing Neymar. Now, moving forward to Serie A, it has truly become a 2-horse race between Napoli and Juventus. Both of them have won 16 games. It's quite close on the goal differential. Both of them are on the same level of form, both winning games this weekend. Inter Milan and Lazio are trailing far behind, 9 points and 11 points off the leaders, respectively. In the Bundesliga, we have had basically no change. They are still on their winter break, I believe. So Bayern up 11 points on Schalke. Dortmund in 3rd on 28 points. Doesn't look like Bayern are going to relinquish this lead anytime soon. They've been incredible and scintillating form over the past 2 months. In Ligue 1, no surprise, PSG is leading the way. Most wins, fewest draws, fewest losses, most goals scored, blistering goal differential of plus 43. They've only lost 1 game in the past month in the league. They've only lost 1 league game in general. So we should see PSG lift that trophy again. Monaco are looking to potentially sell a lot of their other players, so I can't see them catching up. And just to round up quickly, in the Premier League, we obviously have Man City still in front, 15 points clear. They did drop points against Palace, which we did talk about. But obviously they are dominating, 64 goals for, 13 against, 51 goal differential. Doesn't show any signs of letting up. And with some of the transfers that they might be bringing in that we're going to discuss, we'll see how that all shapes up. And with that, we have a roundup of our top 5 leagues. Pretty much nothing has changed. The league leaders have increased their position, and really the only title race left is in Serie A, so we will be bringing more in-depth analysis of that in the coming weeks.
And now on to the transfers for this week. Obviously, the big one we'll get onto and do a little bit of analysis on. But Tosun has completed his move to Everton. It's gone for £27 million. We talked about him last week and what he can bring to Everton. 2 that have come in the last couple of hours since we started recording on the Tuesday. George's Kevin Nkudu has joined Burnley on loan from Tottenham, which I think is, I'm sure you'll agree, Paolo, it's a good move for all parties involved, because Burnley
That's a great move.
get a pacey winger to come into their ranks. Tottenham get to offload some wages, and the player gets potentially some first-team football.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely needed, and I think Burnley and well, Tottenham won't lose anything, and Burnley will benefit, especially as they try to push for a Europa League spot.
Yeah. And in the last sort of hour or so, Stoke City in need of a new manager after the sacking of Mark Hughes over the weekend. They have signed Moritz Bauer from Rubin Kazan. Rubin Kazan, of course, on a little bit of a clear out at the moment. They've told, I think it's five players to basically find new clubs because they can't afford to pay their wages anymore, including players sort of like Jan Villa and Alex Song and Moritz Bauer, who was the Rubin Kazan Player of the Year last season. So a good signing for Stoke. Potentially too little, too late, but I think it's a decent signing, and he's a player that will do, if they stay in the Premier League, a decent job.
Yeah, for sure. I think with Stoke, they just have to get in anyone they can and hope they can stay up. Obviously, spending in January, having a new manager, that could incentivize them and it could spur them on, but we'll have to see. They definitely looked the most toward, especially with the FA Cup result this weekend.
And as well as that, Arsenal have signed Konstantinos Mavropanos from.
That's a good pronunciation. Nice job.
Thank you very much. I was quite proud of that. I've been not practicing it for the last 5 minutes in my head. So they've signed him. He's a nice young player, the sort of player that Arsene Wenger likes to bring in. He likes to bring in his young talent and try and sort of build them up, a la the likes of Iwobi and Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain in the past. And there's two other sort of transfers I think we'll talk a little bit about. First of all is Ross Barkley has completed his move to Chelsea for £15 million. A very, very strange one, this, because they'd agreed a £35 million fee in the summer. At the last minute, Ross Barkley turned it down because he wanted to stay at Everton to continue rehab and working with the same physios and medical staff that he'd been working with up until that point, because he had a sort of a long-term injury. He's now pretty much back from injury and has straight away left for Chelsea, costing Everton 6 months' wages, 6 months' rehabilitation money, and then £20 million on the transfer fee.
Basically just screwed over his club to freeload over at Everton, get whatever physios and whatever free medical care that he could get from the team, and then cost them a pretty penny.
Yeah, I think Everton must be quite upset by this. Obviously, his contract's running down, which is why the fee is so low, similar to that of what we're expecting with Alexis Sanchez. So that is why Chelsea managed to get him for such a low price, because I think he can leave for free in the summer. So yeah. They've at least got something, I guess. But of course, if you're an Everton fan or someone who's been part of the Everton sort of club for this season, you'll of course be very disappointed by the way sort of Ross Barkley sort of conducted himself. I mean, I get it. He wanted to stay with physios and medical staff that he knew for those 6 months. You know, his rehab from quite a serious injury, rather than going to a new club with all new people he didn't know, things like that. So that makes sense. But I think the way he went about it was perhaps not the best. But aside from that, in terms of what he can bring to Chelsea performance, what do you think? It's a good signing for Chelsea, good signing for Barkley, or is it maybe a bit of a mistake?
I could see it potentially working out, but at the same time, what minutes is Barkley going to get? I mean, Chelsea, you either have them playing in the three at the back, the wing backs, you got two kind of deeper lying midfielders, and then you have Hazard playing that number 10 role. Obviously, Barkley can play either the 10 role or the midfield role, but you're competing with Hazard, Conte, Fabregas, Drinkwater, who's been pretty good for Chelsea as well.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see what move he could make. Obviously, I think he wants Champions League football, and he will be in the rotation for that in next season. And
I think that's one of the key reasons that they've signed him is they're still in the FA Cup. They're still fighting in the league. Obviously Manchester City have run away with the league, but the fight for Champions League positions is still quite very open. Very much. And they're still in the FA Cup, albeit with the need for a replay against Norwich, which we'll come on to a little bit later on.
Then the Carabao Cup too. Still, you just have to get a rotation. And
exactly.
I think Chelsea's problem this year is they don't have a rotation.
Yeah, and I think I think that for a player of the potential of Ross Barkley, or I say the potential, he's what, 24 now, something like that.
Hmm.
I think that it gets to a point where you have to stop saying they've got potential. Similarly to like Jack Wilshere and Theo Walcott used to be. Um, you get to that point where actually you need to stop seeing potential. You need to start seeing results. And I think he's reached that point. And maybe he felt like he'd sort of hit his limit with Everton, and he needed to move to a club with a bigger status, better staff, better manager, better players around him to really kick on and become a top player. Which I kind of understand. But the other thing is, Chelsea currently have a very, very good midfielder on loan at Crystal Palace in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and I have a feeling that those two are basically going to become competitors for a place in that Chelsea squad. And I think
Yeah.
give it a year, maybe 18 months at a push, one of them is going to be looking for a move elsewhere because the other one is keeping them out of the squad. And
Yeah.
without wanting to be overly harsh on Ross Barkley, I think that Ruben Loftus-Cheek is more likely to be the player getting
Right.
into the side than Ross Barkley, just on the display for the last 6 months to a year.
And that's tough, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Obviously, we'll see how he plays as well, given that he is fighting for a spot on the plane to Russia. So
Exactly.
we'll see. All
And
right, what else we got?
maybe that's the other thing in his head is
Yeah,
if he can break into this Chelsea squad, it'll get him on the plane.
exactly.
But there is one other little transfer, something that's been sort of there's been little embers of it for the last couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months at a push. Philippe Coutinho, the Liverpool star man, has completed his move to Barcelona. The one that he tried to force through back in the summer, it didn't go ahead, and now in January, Liverpool have finally given up the fight to keep him. I think they gave up in the summer, but they just kept pushing to keep hold of him. And they've ended up getting 142 million, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 90 something million was the straight cash.
The straight fee. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
about 97.5 million pounds was a straight cash fee.
yeah,
And the incentives were La Liga titles and appearances. So
yes.
that will be mostly, if not completely, met by
I
the
mean,
end of the season.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, what do you think as a Liverpool fan and as a tactical analyst? I guess what are your thoughts on that move?
Right. So obviously, I don't want to see him leave
Hmm.
because this year, he has stepped up his form. I mean, last year we saw flashes of the player he could be. He was inconsistent, but at his best, he was one of the best players at Liverpool, one of the best players in the Premier League. Now, this season, he fully elevated himself into the conversation as one of the best midfielders, one of the best versatile players in the Premier League. Who could play both on the wing, who could play both in the center midfield role. And now you see him leave. Obviously, Liverpool, a very deep team. The quality of that depth is to be discussed. Obviously, Mane has been consistent this season. Alana is just coming back. We need to see him get into fitness, get into form. So it does suck to see him gone, and it does suck to see Coutinho leave when he's cup tied in the Champions League, and when Liverpool had such a great draw in the round of 16, where potentially, depending on how other matchups shake out, a semi-final appearance for Liverpool was not out of the equation. But for him, it's his dream move to Barcelona. I wish he hadn't faked the injury in the summer. I wish he hadn't, really forced this through in January. Perhaps maybe the idealist, and I think a lot of Liverpool fans agree that if he had maybe agreed to a fee like Kita did and to come in the summer for Barcelona. But, right now he sees the opportunity for him to play all these La Liga games. And he gets to play with Messi, Iniesta, Suarez. And he was great friends with Suarez when they were together at
Mm.
Liverpool. And he gets to play with Ter Stegen, who's a fantastic keeper. I mean, God, well, I mean, if you're Coutinho and you're scoring screamers off free kicks and you watch Mignolet on the other end not be able to stop a belter from Shaka, you're dying to play with a keeper like Ter Stegen. You're dying to play with a wing back like Jordi Alba, and it makes a lot of sense for him. It's not the most respectable, classy way to leave. I think everyone can understand that. I'm sure people will defend him, and no one is saying that he left. Obviously, we understand. Everyone understands. Everyone with a brain understands that Barcelona and Real Madrid are a step above any other club in the
Hmm.
world right now. And if you get the chance, you go. But it's also about how you leave. And tactically, for Barcelona, it just makes a ton of sense.
Mm.
I mean, you have an aging Iniesta. You want him to play in the Champions League because what he does is still amazing, but he doesn't
Yeah.
have the fitness anymore, and his body is not as durable as it used to be. So you want to save him, you want to rest him, because when Iniesta is at his best, I mean, he's still right up there. You know, him and Messi make that team click when they're at their best.
Mm.
And so with Coutinho, you have someone who can step in and do all the things that he was doing for Liverpool in the league, in La Liga, and not only does he have the opportunity to succeed like he did in the Premier League, he also has the advantage of now playing in a league that isn't as physical,
Mm.
in a league that rewards skillful play because there are players who will just not have the physicality to make those strong tackles, uh, who won't challenge Coutinho the way that some of the Premier League defenders have. And I think the ability of Coutinho to now slot over to that left wing, left mid, center mid spot can now give Barcelona the versatility they need that allows Iniesta to rest, that allows Dembele to play in his more natural position on the in right midfield, rather than have him play perhaps more attacking and more of a finisher. So now you have dual midfielders on each side of the touchline that can both serve creatively and skillfully and just score incredible goals while being complemented by the already dominant goal scoring threat of Suarez, of Messi. You have a very physical midfielder in Paulinho this year, who's been a revelation for Barcelona. And you look at this team now, and you think the league is secure now. They don't have any chance of losing the league, bar an incredible run from Atletico. They don't really have a chance of losing the league with this team. And now you see that they're going to have a team that's well rested in the Champions League.
Mm.
Because let's not forget, they dominated their group and they won with relative ease and made it through into the next round without Dembele and without a player like Coutinho. And now you have Coutinho able to rest all of these fantastic players that Barcelona need. And the system that Valverde has run, his very unconventional 4-4-2, that's going to work even better now that he has another world-class player to slot in and another potentially world-class player returning from injury in Dembele. So I don't see how this is bad for Barcelona. Obviously, Liverpool are going to have to find a replacement, but the bottom line is that this was a great deal for both teams. Given that Coutinho wanted to leave, Liverpool now have $142 million sitting in the bank. And I mean, what do you think that Liverpool should do with that money? I mean, should they try and do a Bale or a Suarez replacement kind of thing and kind of spread the wealth, or is it all right? No, they're going to pony up and just shell out $100 million for the best possible replacement. What do you think they should do?
Okay, so we're sort of moving on to the rumors section
Yeah,
of
yeah.
our transfer roundup, and because of that, there's something that I want to bring up that's been sort of it's simmering under the surface. It's not like a full blown news story at the moment. There's just a few people that have noticed it and have said, well, this could have legs to it, and that is a player at Barcelona who is not particularly happy at the moment. He wasn't particularly happy because he's being rotated a lot in the squad due to Paulinho's form and whatever. But even Rakitic is reportedly, I should stress, unhappy that Barcelona has signed Coutinho and is looking to force a move away, with Liverpool potentially being one of the teams that could go in for him. This may just be a complete false rumor, much like the Mahrez story from the day Coutinho moved. But it could be something that also has some legs and could get somewhere. Obviously, it wouldn't be a direct Coutinho replacement because Rakitic is much more of just a straight central midfielder rather than being able to play out wide and whatever. But I don't know what you think about that potential. About whether that would be a good buy for Liverpool. I mean, it'd be a good buy for pretty much any team.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, would you take Rakitic for say 100 million?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, you have she's a player that obviously he's very good, but right now you look at him and you think this guy's 29 years old,
Mm.
and he's a player that has never played in the Premier League. And is it worth spending that much? I mean, because you have Coutinho, who you basically got for pennies, and he became this world-class player. And obviously, you're not going to get someone like that. But what Liverpool does is they they make really strong, smart buys. Obviously, the Van Dijk buy has already somewhat paid off. But you look at that. You got a young center back, one of the best center backs in England, arguably the world, and you pay this money and you say it's worth it because you get all these years of him. He wants to come to Liverpool, and it's a position of need. And with Rakitic, you get someone who can fit into that center mid role. He can play on the right as well, but he's aging. He doesn't have experience in the Premier League, and you're going to basically clog that midfield because you have Keita who comes in, who's a creative midfielder. I don't know why people keep saying he's a holding midfielder. I don't know, maybe because they see him and he's tall and he's strong and they think, oh yeah, he's a creative he's a defensive mid. No, he's not, because what Liverpool needs right now is they need a strong holding midfielder, because let's face it, Jordan Henderson is not good enough to hold down the midfield. Emre Can was not good enough to hold down the midfield, and obviously it's almost confirmed that he's leaving.
Yeah.
And let's not talk about the wages that Rakitic is on. I mean, he's on 8 million euros a year, so I guess what, like 7 million pounds
about 7 million pounds. Yeah,
that's a lot of money for a player who's 29, who's about to turn 30. His birthday's actually a day before mine, but anyway, so he is about to hit 30. So what would be the interest there from a team like Liverpool, a team in the Premier League playing a much more physical style? I don't think he should move to the Premier League. If he wants to make the move, he should go to Juventus, like what he's been linked to as well. Because Italy, even though it is quote unquote the retirement league, it's also a league where skillful play is rewarded. It's very tactically advanced in terms of how the game is much more mental rather than physical. A lot of the players are it's about positioning, and it's about making the right pass, and it's less so the grind it out for the cheeky 1-0 win like it is in the Premier League. And I think for a player like Rakitic, Liverpool shouldn't want him because it's going to be a bad contract and a bad deal. Even Arsenal, as much as I would love to see them fail, shouldn't go after him because it's going to end up being a bad contract and a bad deal.
I mean, I disagree with you on that one. I think Rakitic is the kind of player that Arsenal needs in the centre of midfield, especially with losing Ozil. They need someone like a Rakitic who can come in and play in that central midfield role, because Ramsey and Xhaka, they're just not good enough if they want to be challenging for top four positions.
Yeah, Arsenal need youth. Their youth is just not good enough. Their veterans are too old. I don't think signing a 30-year-old is going to help them.
What if Rakitic was available for, say, 30 million?
And for 30 million, I mean that's a deal you got to take. You get, I mean, again, 100 million pounds for a player like this. Yeah, 3 years ago, I would say go ahead. I mean, he was obviously instrumental in Barcelona's treble-winning season.
Yeah.
A few years ago, but now 100 million is outrageous. If Barcelona asked 30 million, 25. I don't know how long his contract is. I don't know what leverage Barcelona have in this transfer deal. But let me actually check his contract. He has a contract until 2021.
So you'd have to pay a premium to get him out the contract.
The market value according to Transfer Market is about 45 million euros, but that's got to be more. That's got to be.
I mean, it's 45 million euros as sort of a base level. Obviously, you've got to consider things like current form. You've got to consider things like how important they are to the team and their squad role. You've got to include things like how long their contract is, which obviously, if he's got a contract till 2021, another 3 years, 3.5 years when you consider we've only just started 2018, then that's going to bump up his price quite a lot. So I would think it all depends how important Rakitic is to Barcelona. Obviously, at the moment, it doesn't feel like he's particularly important.
But at the same time,
it's great to have a player of his quality for if there was an injury to Paulinho, for example.
But at the same time, it's he's been playing on the right in Dembele's absence, and
Yeah,
he's usually one of the first. I think what has happened here, like a lot of the rumors, maybe they've taken quotes out of context. And
yeah,
with Dembele, you have such an unproven commodity. Obviously, they bought him for the potential. They bought him for what he could be.
yeah.
But if he doesn't pan out, you have a proven player, and you have someone who plays so well with everyone in that team.
Yeah.
And you look at it from this perspective. Iniesta next year and a half, not going to be able to play much of anything.
He'll probably have retired
Yeah,
by the end of next season, I would say.
yeah. And with Rakitic, you see that and you say, okay, well now I have a place to play, because what Iniesta retiring does and why they brought in Coutinho is they have that Iniesta replacement, but also so that Rakitic can be one of the creative forces in that midfield alongside Coutinho. So I don't think he should leave. I mean, he's an incredible player. I'm excited to see him at the World Cup. I don't think that it'll do much good for him to leave. And I think any team that bought him would be for more than 50 million, honestly more than 45 million than his market value, according to that website. I think it would be a waste of money, because you're going to have to spend so much time, adjusting him to a system that he's very, very familiar with. And if it's inevitably it's inevitably the Premier League. It's a completely different game, and we've seen it so many times before with players from La Liga to the Premier League just not working out. And I think it's a risk that teams looking to make a move in January shouldn't take. You want to strengthen your squad out in January rather than make a big move that's going to shake up the dynamic of the team.
Okay, so there's two other sort of obvious sort of replacements out there that are being sort of thrown around in conversations about who to replace Coutinho, and that is obviously Thomas Lemar and Alexis Sanchez, both of which were very close to moves in the summer, but ironically the two of them together sort of collapsed each other's deals in the Sanchez was going to move to Manchester City, assuming that Arsenal managed to sign Lemar. Lemar turned it down at the last minute, which meant Sanchez's deal fell through. So those two players are available. Obviously, Sanchez is available for, I think Arsenal are holding out for about 30 million, but I think if we were to get to the end of January and he still hadn't sold, I reckon 20 to 25 would be enough. And then Lemar, I think they're probably looking at about 80 to 90 million for him. But at the same time, both of them perhaps probably aren't looking at going to Liverpool, because Sanchez has had his eye on Manchester City for 6 months.
And supposedly an agreement is already in place there.
And at the same time, Lemar and Arsenal are still quite heavily linked. Whether it'll go through, whether he'll look at the Arsenal squad and just go, actually, you know what, I can do better. But I mean, what do you think? Do either of them have the potential to become Liverpool players?
If Lemar waits until the summer, we're coming after him, and it's going to be something where he'll say yes, because we have a great shot at qualifying for the Champions League, even without Coutinho. I think the team has shown that they can play very well. They can win the big games, and now with Van Dijk holding down that defense, there really aren't a ton of glaring issues. Obviously, goalkeeper is a big issue, but everywhere else on the field, Liverpool have great quality, and it's just a matter of if they can qualify for the Champions League, Lemar will be enticed to come. Obviously, there were talks in the summer, and it's a matter of just having the time in the summer window to iron out those details. Whereas with Alexis, obviously, just to go into this, Man City have supposedly agreed with him, and it's just a matter of when the deal takes place, whether that's this window or the next window. So the way it's structured is that he would basically be earning about, I think it was like 200 something K a week.
Yeah,
240K a week.
I think it was 37K a day was the figure.
Something ridiculous like that, and he would also be getting a $30 million signing bonus.
Yeah,
that's if they went in the summer.
Yeah.
Now in the January window, same contract, $15 million signing bonus for Alexis, but also the $20 million fee going to a £20 million fee going to Arsenal. And I think the problem with this deal right now is that Arsenal want more money. They want
Yeah,
25, 30.
yeah.
And obviously Man City, I mean, they're shrewd with it. We say they spend a lot of money, but they don't ever really overpay for players. You look at their most expensive transfer fee in history. It's 55 million pounds for De Bruyne, who is now easily worth
150,
quintuple
150
that,
to
I would say.
200. Yeah,
Probably more than that. Honestly, if he is worth more than Neymar to Man City right now.
yeah. To Man City, I think if he were to actually leave Man City, he would probably go for about 180 million.
Yeah, probably something like that. But the point is though that they're smart with how much money they spend per player. Like,
I
obviously
think
they have money to spend.
yeah, the thing to look at with Manchester City, people said a lot about they paid £50 million for Sterling, they paid £50 million for Kyle Walker. At first, Sterling underperformed, fair enough. But this season especially, no one is saying anything about that transfer fee for Sterling. He's been worth every penny. Kyle Walker, no one is saying anything about that transfer fee because he has performed. Maybe not to the level that you'd expect a £50 million player in last season's transfer market, for example, to play. But in this season's, I think he's performed, better than any other player around the same. Lacazette was something like 46 million, and people are questioning his fee because he's massively underperformed. But Kyle Walker, no one is. Lukaku as well, Morata. No one is questioning Kyle Walker's fee, and that's because Manchester City, they recognised what they needed. They recognised the player that could fill that gap, and they knew they'd have to overpay for him, or in sort of inverted commas, overpay for him because it's a league rival, and it's a homegrown player and all that stuff. So the price is inflated. But they went out, they got their man, and now no one is even thinking about that fee because he's performed.
Yeah, and with Alexis, do they want to pay a player that? But the thing is, Alexis wants to leave.
Yeah.
And Wagner, for all of his arrogance, is like, I don't want him to leave until I can sign a replacement. But it's not like you really have a choice.
No. At this point, I think even Arsenal fans are saying, look, this season we're not doing great anyway. Let him go. Bring in the 20 to 25 million. Use the money to reinvest somewhere else on the pitch that needs it. Although Sanchez is obviously their best player on par with Ozil, at the point in the season we're in now, it almost looks like they're already out of contention for Champions League spots. And they're not doing particularly well in that they're already out of the FA Cup as well. And, you don't expect them to progress particularly far in. Are they still in the Europa League? They are, aren't they?
They're in so they're in the Europa League, and they're in the
EFL Cup.
They're in the EFL Cup, yeah. So, but at the same time, it's like Alexis is not playing in the Europa League because a player of his quality should not be playing in the Europa League.
Exactly.
The fact is that if you're Arsenal, you look at your team, you look at the players you have, and you don't blame them at all. Because if you go out, one game in London, one game in Bavaria, you lose 10-2 to Bayern on aggregate.
Mm-hmm.
How can you expect to keep players like Ozil and Sanchez? And you follow that up by qualifying for Europa League. Not Champions League, Europa League.
Yeah. The thing is, when Arsenal went out and signed Ozil, it was 45 million, I think it was, which at the time was a lot of money. Yeah. And then they went out, I think it was the next season, and signed Sanchez as well, which I think they paid 30 million at the time because he was out of favour at Barca. And people were saying, "Oh my God, okay, Arsenal, they're starting to push back. We're starting to see some fight back from Wenger. He's spending the money." And then since then, they brought in Cech, which was a decent signing, but at the end of the day, Cech left Chelsea because he'd been displaced by Thibaut Courtois. And then they brought in, Mustafi, who's been on and off with form, and they brought in, Danny Welbeck, who is an injury with a football career. Theo Walcott he's still one day going to live up to that potential at the young age of 28. They let Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain go because he wasn't performing, and now he's doing amazing at Liverpool. I say amazing. He's not breaking records, but he's doing a job.
He's playing well. He's doing his job, and he's getting he's getting in good favor with everyone in the club, all the fans, and to make matters worse, they also let go of Szczęsny, who,
It's
granted,
now
he
doing
struggled
really
at Roma,
well.
and everyone was like, "Oh, he's great," but then you take into account that this guy speaks Polish and English, finally learns Italian, and suddenly he's amazing. He's communicating with his teammates. He bounces back, at the end of his Roma stint, and now he's at Juventus, tearing up the league. He's keeping out freaking Buffon out of the team. And you look at what Arsenal have let go of, or you look at what they haven't brought in, and you see their fans hanging their hats on, three out of three FA Cup wins in 4 years.
Which is it's a decent return, but at the end of the day, that's 3 FA Cup wins and no Premier Leagues for a long time.
Yeah, and you're also talking about no Champions Leagues either. I mean, you're thinking about some of the teams they've had.
I mean, they have Van Persie.
Van Persie, they had Henry, they had incredible teams. I mean, even their invincible season, they let down in the Champions League. They have never put it together, all together in one season.
That Invincibles team should have been able to go far in the Champions League, and perhaps the reason they got the Invincible seasons was because they disappointed in the Champions League. But when you look at Manchester City now, where they're destroying the league and they're destroying, well, I say destroying, they're doing very, very well in the Champions League, and they've got a really good chance of going far, potentially even winning it. You have that's the level, that's the difference in levels. Chelsea, their 2004, 2005 teams were very good, and they went on and won the Champions League. Manchester United have had some very good teams over the years, won many Premier Leagues. Even Liverpool won a Champions League. But I think, and this is sort of leading on to our FA Cup talk, we're going to start off with our Arsenal and Nottingham Forest. And I think it all comes down to, and I'm not someone that likes to bash the managers. When all the Wenger out thing was going on, I was one of the people, I'm not an Arsenal fan. I have no particular like or dislike for Arsenal. But I was one of the guys thinking, hold on, this guy's been your manager for 20 odd years. And he completed the invincible season, and he's been a great manager and a great servant to the club. But when you look at what's going on now, it's difficult to think this guy deserves to be in this job, because they haven't invested well. They've brought in, like, when Manchester City signed John Stones for 50 million, Arsenal signed Rob Holding. And Arsene Wenger said, I don't need to spend 50 million on a centre-back. I've just signed this guy from Bolton for not very much, and he's going to be just as good. And he got torn apart at the weekend by an 18-year-old who was playing in the Championship. And I think that pretty much sums up Arsenal. They keep trying to bring in youth players, and none of them are performing. Iwobi's had one or two okay games, but other than that, nothing particularly good. Theo Walcott is still, doing his best and not getting into the Arsenal first team. They let Oxlade-Chamberlain go, and he turned from I said it myself during an England game when he was still an Arsenal player, that he shouldn't even be in the shirt because I thought he was absolutely terrible. He goes to Liverpool, starts doing a good job. I reckon he should be on the plane to Russia. And it becomes impossible to think that the problem is with the team or with the backroom or anything. It's got to start with the manager, because at the end of the day, yes, maybe the owners aren't very good. I don't know the ins and outs of the Arsenal hierarchy, but maybe
Koeman is he's a bad owner. He doesn't give a lot of money.
Yeah, and I get that. You don't give a lot of money. Leicester City won the league with a team that was worth probably about half of what Arsenal's was worth. Yeah. And that comes down to the manager. Claudio Ranieri is a fantastic manager. I don't think he should have been sacked when he was. And he took a Leicester team that was, on paper, worth very little. Admittedly, now you've got Mahrez and Vardy who have bumped up their prices, things like that. And Kante, of course, is a £150 million player now. But when you look at Arsenal, that team should be doing better than Leicester. I know everyone in the league should have been doing better than Leicester on paper. But I think the difference is that since then, Chelsea have won the league. This season, Manchester City are going to win the league. Liverpool, admittedly, they've still not... The thing with Liverpool is they're spending a lot less money than everyone else. And until this season. But admittedly, they've just sold a player for 142 million, so they're not doing too bad. And Tottenham, they haven't won anything, but they've been up there challenging for the Premier League for the last couple of seasons, and they've turned Harry Kane into a god. But with Arsenal, it's just complete naivety, and I just don't understand how the manager who managed the Invincibles had a team with Robert Pires, Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, and players like
Dennis
Bergkamp, Jens Lehmann, David Seaman, Sol Campbell, Ashley Cole, all these fantastic players, and now you look at the side and it's like not one of these players would even make it into the 23-man squad, except for Sanchez and Ozil, who he's let disappear. And it's honestly, it's sad to see. And that's sort of
Arsenal. They're one of the powerhouse teams.
They were,
yeah.
And it leads me on to the FA Cup. We want to talk about this game now, where they, of course, played against Nottingham Forest and lost 4-2. One of the goals may be a little bit controversial, but at the end of the day, you rule out that goal, they still lost. And I think it showed a complete lack of respect from Arsene Wenger in that game, and I think it showed a complete arrogance from Arsene Wenger that the team he fielded, admittedly against the Nottingham Forest side, who have been struggling recently. They've recently sacked their manager, and they've just brought in Aitor Karanka from the former Middlesbrough manager. But he came up against the Nottingham Forest side and played effectively a youth team with a couple of old players. Effectively. And expected to go out and win. Now, this isn't an uncommon thing for a Premier League side, especially a big side, to play some of their younger players, to make a lot of changes, especially when they've got the EFL Cup semi-final coming up, like Chelsea do, and like Arsenal did, or the Champions League and whatever. But the difference is, and Tottenham did this, is you leave your good players on the bench, so that if things aren't going your way at the hour mark, you could say, right, Alexis Sanchez, I know you want to leave, get out there and win us this game, because we still need to be in the FA Cup. Tottenham did it. They had Son and they had Dele Alli on the bench. They brought on Son, they scored the first goal. They brought on Dele Alli, they scored the second goal. But Arsenal didn't have that. On their bench, there was no one. There was no one they could call on the bench, and you would have confidence that they could go out and do a job.
The best player on their bench was Callum Chambers.
And Callum Chambers is a player that they paid something like £18 million for, who never plays.
Yeah.
Because he's just not good enough.
Look at that team, and what was he doing?
I mean, he says it should have been a good enough team because there are, international players in there. But none of them are making regular appearances for their international side. And if they are, they're at an international side that isn't, in the top sort of 20 international sides in the world. Mm-hmm. It was completely, I say arrogant, and I say that, maybe it sounds a little bit harsh, but it is arrogant because he came in thinking, I can play this youth side and we'll still win the game because they're struggling, they're in the Championship, they're not very good. And Nottingham Forest came out and said, right, if you're going to do that, we're going to go and we're going to batter you. And that's what they did. And yes, Arsenal scored 2 goals, but you'd expect them to with the team they put out. You'd expect to be an okay Championship side. So you'd expect them to get goals. But the way that Nottingham Forest just completely ripped their defence apart was something that it was a sight to behold. It was a Championship side saying, you can't come here, you can't come to us and say the Championship's bad and play this team. We're going to show that actually the Championship, there's a reason that people say it's the most competitive league in the world. Maybe not this season because of Wolves, but we'll get onto that later. But there's a reason that people say it's the most competitive league in the world. And the reason why every year in the Premier League, you don't have the same 3 clubs going up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's because the Championship is so competitive. And it's because the Championship is actually a very, very good league. As a second division, it's easily the best in the world.
It's not even close.
It's not even remotely close. Bundesliga 2 is maybe possibly the closest, but I would say that Bundesliga 2 is probably about the level of League 1.
No, I would say that it's probably La Liga, un, dos, tres is probably if you look at it, the valuation of all the clubs in La Liga, the second La Liga, is second in the world. They're worth about $370 million combined if you combine all of them. The Championship is over $700 million.
Exactly. Exactly.
And nothing else comes close. And because with La Liga, the second one, you have a lot of really strong teams there, and I think you have teams with a lot of history, and you have teams that do beat up on a lot of the bigger teams in the Copa del Rey, whereas obviously in the Championship you have the FA Cup, and this is everything for these teams because it's a tournament with every single team in the Football Association of the biggest footballing country in the world. And why would you ever think that a team isn't going to give its hardest? I mean, the players on Forest, some of them are very good players.
Very good players, yeah. And I think on that performance, they may be looking at a summer switch to the Premier League.
Yeah. I mean, I could see Dowell back, I could see Brereton, I could see Leica back. I mean,
and I think it's a problem across the Football League where the Premier League is given a lot more attention, a lot more money and everything than the Football League. It's been a problem for years. But I think the one thing you need to look at is the fact that you have teams like Leicester and Southampton. They were Premier League teams for a while. They went down to the Championship. They ended up going down to League One before they made their way back up to the Premier League because it was so competitive in the Championship. They couldn't hold their place. Sunderland now struggling in the Championship. Villa in their first season didn't do particularly well. You've got teams, albeit some of them for reasons outside of football. Blackpool were in the Premier League not so long ago, now in League One, and were in League Two. Coventry City now in League Two. Charlton in League One. Blackburn in League One. Wigan, League One. Wigan won the FA Cup not too long ago, beating Man City in the final. I think it was 20. Oh, I can't remember the exact year. It might have been like 2012 or something. But now they're in League One because of how competitive it is in the Championship. And like people can say, oh, but the teams that go down, they get these umbrella payments. How many teams are actually using them to good use and aren't people say they're coming down, they're getting given 30 million, and yet last season Newcastle went down, or sorry, 2 seasons ago Newcastle went down along with Villa, and for the life of me I can't remember the other team, but they went, I think it was Hull. I think you might be right. Only Newcastle came back up. Brighton and Huddersfield came with them, 2 teams that haven't been in the Premier League for a long time. And I think that shows you everything you need to know about the Championship, and I think it shows you why Arsene Wenger was completely naive to play the side that he did. And it shows that, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Leicester all played weakened sides, making 8 or 9 changes. Chelsea drew 0-0 with Norwich. Admittedly, a team that have been in the Premier League recently, but they drew 0-0. And then you've got Bournemouth, who played a League One side, were 2-0 down and scored in the last minute. And then with Leicester, they drew as well to a League One side, to Fleetwood, in the Jamie Vardy Cup, which Jamie Vardy didn't even play in. And sorry, it was Wigan that Bournemouth played. And, Spurs were 0-0 until they brought on Son and Dele Alli. And I think it just shows that the Premier League are out of touch with the rest of the Football League, and it's sort of a good moment to sort of bring this up because you've got the Checker Trade Trophy third round tonight, where obviously there's under 21 sides or under 23 or something sides. I tend not to pay attention to the Checker Trade Trophy, like most fans, but Premier League clubs putting youth sides into this trophy. None of the fans want them there. Most of the clubs don't want them there. They want the old Johnson's Paint Trophy format back, and yet there they are. And I think it shows how out of touch the Premier League is with the rest of the Football League. And I think the FA Cup just showed that. You had Shrewsbury getting a draw against West Ham. West Ham were terrible. They're playing against a League One side in Shrewsbury. Admittedly, doing pretty well in League One. But they did absolutely terrible. And West Ham deserved to... They didn't just deserve to lose. They deserved to get beaten, and beaten well, much like Arsenal did to Nottingham Forest. And I think it's about time that the Premier League started to stop and notice that actually the Football League has some talent. And I know this as an Oxford fan. it's something. It's a tactic that Oxford United have employed. That a number of teams have employed, Preston North End and a few others, where they'll offer first team football to Premier League players who can't break into their first team, and they'll offer the first team football, bring them in, maybe a 6-month loan, and then buy him on the cheap. After that, Oxford United, Kemar Roof, they signed him for free from West Bromwich Albion. 1 season later, sold him for £3 million. John Lundstrom signed him from Everton on the cheap, sold him for £1 million, or just under £1 million. It would have been over £1 million, but he was short on contracts, basically. And now Ryan Ledson, again signed from Everton, became one of the best centre mids in League One, and now he's got Championship sides sniffing after him, even the odd Premier League sides looking like he could go for £1 million, £2 million. And I mean, maybe I'm going on a rant because I am a fan of a League One side, but I think it's about time that the Premier League started to take notice of the Football League. But speaking of the Football League, let's talk about two teams in the Football League who played out one of the best games in the FA Cup. Back to the FA Cup. Rant over. Back to the FA Cup. One of the best games of the Cup, played just down the road from me at Rodney Parade, as Newport County scored a last-minute winner to beat Leeds United. What a game that was. That was the magic of the FA Cup right there. It was a game where Leeds led early on, and Newport just kept fighting and fighting and fighting, and they've been rewarded with a game against Tottenham Hotspur in the next round. So we're going to be seeing Harry Kane in Newport, which is something that I never thought would happen in my lifetime.
And that's going to be an absolutely fantastic opportunity for Newport.
I think it's going to be
revenue and to play that game, and there's no bad things that can happen.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if they get beaten 5-0, no one's going to say anything, because a team with Harry Kane in, Harry Kane can score 5 goals against almost any team in the world. If you're Newport County and he scores 5 goals against you, fair enough. You hold your hands up. You saw a great player play great football against you. And I think for Newport, it was a fantastic result against Leeds. They played really well. The goal from his name escapes me now, Sean Mikulski. It was a fantastic header. It's the sort of header that anyone would be proud of. Your Alan Shearers, your Didier Drogba's, your great strikers of time gone by would be really proud of that header. It was a really, really good header. And Newport County have been rewarded with that tie against Tottenham Hotspur, and I really hope that, are they going to win? Possibly, probably not. But I really hope they give them a really great game of it, and they're probably going to get that TV coverage again, which will be a good chunk of money in the pockets. Yeah. That's a great draw for Newport County.
Absolutely. And another team that we should be giving a lot of credit to is Coventry for their absolute embarrassing of Stoke. Granted, Stoke are terrible, and this was indeed the straw that broke the camel's back for Mark Hughes' job. But to beat a Premier League side 2-1 in a convincing fashion, no less. I mean, that's one of the stories of the FA Cup, and that's that FA Cup magic that we've been talking about. And
for a team like Coventry, who've been through the mill the last few years with their owners, with their stadium issues, they were exiled from their own stadium for a season. And last season they won the Checkatrade Trophy, admittedly not the most prestigious trophy in the world, not a trophy people particularly like, but at the expense of my Oxford United side, won the Checkatrade Trophy. And now this great result against Stoke. It's becoming okay to be a Coventry fan again. And I think that a team that, no one likes to see a team go that way. It happens all the time where you see teams that have bad owners or stuff goes wrong outside of football and they drop all the way down the Football League. Blackpool, it happened to Portsmouth, possibly the most high-profile one. And it's great to see both of those sides climb back into League One last season. But it's great to see a team like Coventry, who are, an old English football team. They've had, a lot of time in the Premier League, things like that, and it's great to see them get not just a result against Stoke, but actually play better than them. And it's what got Mark Hughes fired. which I think Stoke fans will be very happy with. So I've actually seen a lot of response from Stoke fans saying, thank you, Coventry, because they don't need a cup run right now. They need to be focusing 100% on Premier League survival. And at the same time, it got Mark Hughes the sack, which I think most Stoke fans were hoping for. But a fantastic performance from Coventry, magic of the cup. And yeah, I think that pretty much just rounds up our FA Cup roundup for this week. A few transfer rumours that we'll quickly run through, just because it's the done thing, isn't it? Chelsea want to re-sign Thorgan Hazard. Any thoughts on that? Other than they're probably doing it to appease
Hazard. I mean, yeah, the whole thing came out like Courtois and Hazard, they're Belgium superstars, they're two talismans. They've said, oh, well, we'll wait for the other to sign. It'll help, because that unity, obviously, that relationship is so important. And
all three Hazards would then be...
Bring the third one. And they have the other brother. Bring the whole thing. You know, and
Thorgan Hazard obviously used to be a Chelsea player, came in at the same time as Eden Hazard, didn't cut the mustard, so he went away to Mönchengladbach, I think it was, wasn't it? And now they want him back. Another example of a player that Chelsea let go too soon. As well as that, Griezmann is always in the headlines. Could be going to Barcelona.
Apparently, they've offered him a 5-year deal.
Yeah, but apparently he would prefer not to go to Barcelona. He has basically said if Manchester United offer him a £400,000 a year contract, £400,000 a week contract, then he would be willing to go to Manchester United. So that's going to be one that's going on next summer as well.
Okay, so 400,000.
It would make him the highest paid player in the Premier League.
But are we talking about post-tax?
I don't know.
Well, because I know the Sanchez and De Bruyne contracts, the way a lot of people talk about them in post-tax terms, whereas the pre-tax for Alexis is like 400 something, or like 380 or something.
Yeah.
So it's different. Well, 400,000. If that thing post-tax, that would make him the highest paid Premier League player ever. I think.
I think so. Yeah. Rooney was 300,000.
Yeah.
As well as that, Lucas Moura is apparently unhappy at PSG. Manchester United and Liverpool are potential destinations for him. Would be an okay signing for both. Wouldn't be any more than a squad player, I'd imagine. I think he had like one good season, lost form, and
He's
yeah.
over the hill as well.
As well as that, Shakhtar Donetsk's Fred is apparently waiting for a phone call from Pep Guardiola to potentially seal a move to Manchester City. I think that may well be a backup to Sanchez if that deal doesn't go through, possibly.
Or a deal for the future.
And obviously we've spoken about Chanta to Juventus as well. Is it looks like it's going to be done and dusted. He's going to leave on a free at the end of the season to go to Juventus. And one sort of little one at the end that I'm only bringing in because we have a Liverpool fan and an Oxford United fan as hosts of the podcast. Cameron Brannigan, the Liverpool youngster who Jurgen Klopp said was a complete midfielder, has been scouted by Real Madrid and Barcelona in the past, is reportedly on the verge of finalising a permanent £200,000 deal to Oxford United. So thank you very much, Paolo, for your service.
Oh, yeah, of course. Just an exciting time. Obviously, as a player that in the Liverpool Academy, in the whole progression of things, we have a lot of really good young players. Joe Gomez, TAA, Ben Wordburn, Ryan Brewster, just to name a few. Even Aaron Lennon seems a promising player. So with this move, it just doesn't seem like he's going to get the time. It doesn't seem like he's going to develop. If anything,
things just didn't work out in loan deals and with injuries, things like that. And I mean, you've got to admire the balls. A lot of players don't have the balls to say, right, I want first team football. I'm going to drop down 2 divisions, sometimes 3 for some players, to get first team football. Sometimes it works out. As I was saying earlier, Oxford United are a team that do this a lot. Kemar Roof is now at Leeds and doing quite well. And John Lundstrom's in the Championship as well with Sheffield United. Callum O'Dowda admittedly didn't drop down from the Premier League, but he's another one that's now in the Championship with Bristol City, who are doing very well. And so I think he's, without wanting to be arrogant, he's coming to a club that have a history of doing this, and I think that's possibly the reason behind His willing to move. I think £200,000 is a very fair price in the current market as well. So I think a good move for all parties, because he's not going to break into that Liverpool side, and this way he gets first team football. Is he going to still be an Oxford player in 5 years' time? Probably not.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be either a high championship side or a Premier League side.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. But for now, Oxford are an attractive place for him to go play. And also, it's not like he's going to Yorkshire. He's going to Oxford. There's plenty of things to do there. He's a young guy. He'll have fun. He'll make some roots. So that's a good move for everyone, I think.
Yeah. And speaking of Oxford, it's time to talk about our team of the week. And I've been waiting since the start of this podcast to include an Oxford United player in the team of the week. And obviously we do our EFL player of the week every week, and then that player of the week gets into our team of the week. We've had Kemar Roof in the past, which was sort of my way of kind of putting an Oxford United player in, obviously as a past player. But this time we have a genuine reason. We've decided that we're still going to do our EFL player of the week, but it's not going to be one of the teams in the FA Cup, if that makes sense. So Oxford United played against Blackpool at the weekend, and they were absolutely terrible, except for one player, Simon Eastwood, who looking like he's going to be leaving us, which makes me really sad because he's a top quality goalkeeper. Oxford United there was 14 shots on goal from Blackpool, and he kept a clean sheet, including 4 world-class saves, like the sort of saves that you would expect, a De Gea, a Lloris, a Courtois, a ter Stegen to make. And he basically won the game for us. It doesn't matter that someone else got the goal or whatever. He won us that game, and because of that, and because I'm really sad that he's possibly going to be leaving, because there's a very strong interest from Barnsley, and he's been left out of the side tonight with a reported injury.
Yeah.
Simon Eastwood is the goalkeeper in our team of the week, and moving on to the defence. First of all, let's start with our new boy, Paolo, your new boy.
Oh, my new boy. Are we talking about the Van himself, Virgil van Dijk, on his debut, won several aerial duels, made some key tackles, but most importantly, scored the game-winning header in the Merseyside derby of the third round of the FA Cup on his debut.
That's how you make your transfer fee seem. If anyone had any doubt about the £75 million, he's just erased them there.
Yeah, there is no other way that it could have gone any more perfectly. And with everyone in the league now, they've been put on notice. Virgil van Dijk is in a team that is competing for the Champions League. He's centering, holding down the defense, and he looks like a Liverpool player. That looks like the guy who was born in the River Mersey. And that is all you want out of a signing. And as Klopp said, in probably one of the best interviews I've ever seen a Premier League manager give, bias aside, he talks about Coutinho leaving, and he said, players come and go, but the thing about Liverpool is that it has a particular heart and soul, and that's something you can't buy, even though many clubs would like to. And for Virgil van Dijk, this signing is the perfect example of a player who does typify that Liverpool spirit, and I think beyond all that, his performance is well worthy of a team of the week spot. So that's our first defender, if you will, and then Kieran, who will lead us into some more EFL players with which he's way more familiar than I am.
Yes, so there are four EFL players, other EFL players. There's 5 in this week's team of the week. The other 4 have all played in the FA Cup, and I'm sure you can take a guess who some of them are. We'll start with the most obvious one first, and that is Eric Lehigh, or however you pronounce it. That's how they were pronouncing his name in the commentary. Right. So I'll go with that. Eric Lehigh, the Nottingham Forest defender, who scored a brace against Arsenal, including a just sublime volley. And
shades of James Rodriguez in the World Cup.
Yeah, it was
sublime.
It was just inch perfect, and it's the sort of strike that if a Messi or a Ronaldo had hit that, people would be talking about it as a potential goal of the season contender type thing. And yes, there was no way he wasn't making it. I think he's going to be in every team of the week, on every podcast, radio show, website, and everything, unless it's just a Premier League or a Liga thing.
Or an
then
Arsenal,
they wouldn't.
or an Arsenal podcast.
Or an Arsenal podcast, yeah. So Eric Lehigh is makes up the second third of our defence and the third of our defence. We're going for a three at the back, as we seem to always do. We have Jack Grimmer, the Coventry City defender, scored the winner against Stoke, and he's just a great little player, Jack Grimmer, and he had a great performance. And not that Stoke were particularly good going forward, but for a League Two defender to be battling up against what was a fairly strong Stoke City side, if Mark Hughes had played that side in the Premier League, no one would have batted an eye, other than the fact that Shaqiri was left on the bench. And yeah, it was just a very accomplished performance, and deserved to get that winner at the end of the game. And the third of our four FA Cup stars, if you like, as we move on to the midfield, 18-year-old Ben Brereton for Nottingham Forest absolutely terrorised the Arsenal defence. Really, really solid performance. Got his goal as well from the spot, and just a fantastic performance from a young player who I think has a lot of eyes on him at the moment, and a lot of eyes coming from above him in the Premier League and perhaps even across Europe. Definitely deserved his spot. And to take us through the rest of the midfield, Paolo, we've got three players from Europe. Europe is, of course, your specialty on this podcast, so I'll let you take us through the other three in the midfield.
All right. Well, in other League Cups, it's surely not as prestigious as the FA Cup, but we have the French Cup, and in that Cup, we saw PSG dominate, as always, against a fellow Ligue 1 side, and we had Mbappe just absolutely class. This kid, once his transfer fee goes through, will be the second most expensive in the world at £160 million, but he had a sublime assist leading the counterattack, or finishing off the counterattack, rather, to Neymar for a simple tap-in. Purely class, unselfish player, topped it off with a goal as well. If you see that play, basically what happens is that it goes straight to Mbappe in front of goal, recognizes that Neymar has a supreme advantage. If Mbappe had a 70% chance to score, Neymar had 99.9.
Yeah.
Mbappe makes the decision, squares it, lays it off perfectly. And it's just the kind of play that you see from the most unselfish players in the world.
It's a beautiful touch as well.
Yeah.
So really beautiful touch.
Absolutely beautiful touch. And speaking of Messi, he also makes the team of the week, leading Barcelona, just absolutely dominant as always. Created two key passes that led to clear-cut chances that were not scored. But in addition to that, he had a goal and an assist in Barcelona's 3-0 win on the weekend. Another midfielder that we have to give a shout-out to is Christian Tello of Real Betis, who came in, battered Sevilla 5-3, absolute domination. Sevilla somehow are still in fifth place, but you look at a team like Real Betis and you see the players that they have, and Christian Tello is a player for the future, and he had a supreme outing, coming on in the second half, winning man of the match with a goal and an assist. So that rounds out our midfield for the week in Europe. And two players very near and dear to Kieran's heart lead the attack alongside Mikulski.
Yes, so Mikulski, as we've talked about him a little bit already, fantastic header for Newport, came on as a substitute, won them the game with just a sublime header, and of course he makes it into that team of the week for sinking Leeds. And then of course he's here all the time. Harry Kane, the top goal scorer across every division, across Europe and possibly even the world. I think it's probably not.
Immobile is actually higher.
He's higher at the moment. I mean, in 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the top goal scorer in 2017. Outscored Messi, Ronaldo, everyone. Sublime player. He was our player of the year, and he makes it into the team of the week again this week. Rescued Tottenham. Got himself a brace against AFC Wimbledon in that London derby, and it's difficult not to put him in the team of the week every week because he's just that good. And finally, here is your bizarre story of the week. Bas Dost makes it into our team of the week, and he's had a great season, really good season. He's got himself a hat trick this weekend, which isn't particularly out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary is he only had 13 touches of the ball in the entire game. 13 touches, and he got a hat trick. If that's not clinical,
that's not efficiency.
Yeah, like we talk about Harry Kane and how he's just the complete striker. 13 touches, you get a hat trick. Harry Kane, sit down. You're on the bench, son. That is insane.
Incredible.
And I mean, I'm honestly surprised that no one is going in for Bastos in the transfer window. I mean, maybe 3 goals in 13 touches is you know, if Neymar's 200 million, then that must make Bastos 200 billion if he can score 3 in 13 touches. Maybe just slightly out of PSG's price range.
Yeah, just slightly. But yeah, it's a shame that we won't see Bastos at the World Cup this year. Unfortunately, he is Dutch, and as we all know, Holland is out. But yeah, what a great team of the week. Very unorthodox, but I think it's one that people who have seen the games this weekend will find it hard to disagree with.
Yeah, and that wraps up our team of the week. Our player of the week. Who is going to be our player of the week this week, Paolo? I think there's only really one decision, isn't there? He scored a sublime volley.
Yeah, it's got to be Lehigh. It's the American, actually, who somehow has been kept out of the American side because our managers still insist on playing DeAndre Yedlin, even though he plays like he's about 50 years old. But that is a conversation for another time. But Eric Lehigh, the American man in the Nottingham Forest shirt, about to hit the ripe old age of 30. Perhaps that's why they keep him out. Who knows? But still, as Nottingham Forest advance into the 4th round of the FA Cup, we'll keep our eyes on him. He is undoubtedly the EFL Player of the Week. What a stunner. Both the game and his goal. And he also had a second goal to top that off. So I don't think anyone's going to be disagreeing with us, will they?
No, I think the only argument maybe for Bastos, but when you only have 13 touches in a game, you haven't affected the game enough to be the player of the week. Even if you score a hat-trick.
Yep.
But that wraps up On the Volley, episode 5. Thank you very much for listening and for tuning in. Currently going on, or in an hour, the kickoff between Manchester City and Bristol City will be taking place. I believe this video will be up before then. But just so you know, as we're recording, that game hasn't kicked off. So we will discuss that as well as Chelsea v Arsenal next week. The first leg of the EFL Cup semi-finals, as well as rounding up any transfer deals that have gone through, what's been going on in the Premier League and across Europe's 5 top leagues, and we'll once again be bringing you our EFL Player of the Week. There won't be 5 of them in the Team of the Week next week, unfortunately, but just the one. But thanks very much for listening, Paolo. Thank you very much for your ongoing analysis. The Coutinho analysis this week was a particular highlight, I think. Any closing remarks?
No, just keep an eye out for some great recaps of next week. We've got the resuming of the Bundesliga. We've got Premier League football over the weekend. Liverpool Man City is the highlight fixture, and we're just really looking forward to it. It should be a great weekend of football, and it should be a great episode next week. So tune in, and thanks again, Kieran and everyone. Just take care. I'm Paolo Santa Maria. Here's Kieran Lacey, and we've been On the Volley.